And welcome to another episode of Spear from the Past. I don't have a cool video package because apparently, like NXT Takeover didn't really have any like interesting video packages, and I know if I even tried to play along with video commercial for these pay-per-views, WWE would have blocked it, and we would have had an awkward conversation about the video that no one else is seeing. But this last few times I've played a advertisement for the pay-per-views, like it's been swiftly blocked until I removed it. But anyway, got Jacob Cameron here. Jacob, how's it going?
It's going great, Malcolm. Thank you so much for having me. This is legitimately, and I've told you this a couple times, this is legitimately one of my favorite pay-per-views. I know this was on the WWE network, but I'm going to use a pay-per-view because it like saying super card sounds kind of outdated, but this is one of my favorite pay-per-views of all time. I did not watch this live as it happened. I think I watched it a day or two afterwards because the WrestleMania that followed this was so bad, and I had followed NXT off and on for a couple years, and I'm like, okay, let's see what this Dallas show is like, and just man, this show is just it's just a work of art.
Yeah, and this is it's one of those ones like I actually didn't mind the WrestleMania that actually came after this personally. I enjoyed it myself, but each their own. We'll probably get to that eventually anyway, because it is on the real. But no, it's like this NXT is something that I've never really sort of delved into much. Like I think the only time I've ever watched NXT was when they were doing the whole competition, like who wants to be the next WB superstar, the pros and all that, the challenges and all that, which I
Yeah,
enjoyed for the moment.
yeah, that's the NXT. I don't like to crap on too much because we got Daniel Bryan out of it. So hey, every every cloud is a silver lining and all of that. But that was like the first show that I was like a big old like my super non-biased like fandom was in like started in like 2009, and starting that show and like what sprung from that and like the whole Nexus thing, I'm like, oh, this is what the bad stuff looks like. And so it kind of turned me off of NXT for quite a few years, and then I started watching it from the Full Sail tapings. I went to a couple Full Sail tapings. There were a couple house shows where I lived in Daytona Beach, and then the takeovers, of course. And so from 2014 to 2019, that's like the golden age of like wrestling for me.
Yeah. And it was like I didn't intend on the color scheme to be black and gold with the banners and stuff, but it's just
It
how
was
it
meant to be.
made, made it on my end. But with that, going going to move on. And last time I had Jason on, we did talk about how he got started into WWE, so I'm not going to worry about that now. Go jump straight into um. As I joked before the show, I was like, this is Triple H was involved with NXT because Takeover match cards are like 5 matches. And it's one of those ones like I'll still call it a pay per view because I think it was still promoted as such. It's just one of those ones, and it's always funny like going and one thing is like I would do also is like I always found it interesting sort of going back to watch the scenic seeds and seeing some of the people that we know now with um some of them entirely different gimmicks and some of them are not there anymore. But jumping into this, the first match we had on the card we had American Alpha, which is Chad Gable and Jason Jordan, defeating the Revival, which was Dash Wilder and Scott Dawson for NXT Championship match, uh, tag team titles. And this is one of those. This is one of those matches. Is like, yeah, I'm pretty sure we're in for a good night because, like, I think this tag match was really solid. And it was just like a really good. And it's one of those ones like I don't know if if there necessarily was a story sort of leading up to this, but it's one of those ones like I also didn't really care either because like I was like I knew that these were like matches and that and they were all finding their footing. So I was like I kind of didn't care if there was a story to it or not, but it was just really fun um and see once again seeing Chad Gable vlog here it's, it
Wild.
really yeah but yeah, and I forgot how good Chad and Jason was as a tag team. Like, I did
Yeah.
definitely have just did see some matches with theirs sort of on and off when they moved up to the main rosters. But Jacob, what were your thoughts about this tag match?
Loved this match. I mean, this match really benefits from this crowd. Like this Dallas crowd just made every match better just by being just involved in literally everything. I want to go out on a limb and say that 2016 was the Revival, FTR, call them whatever you want. This was one of their best years as a team. That and 2022 when they had that trilogy with the Briscoes. Those were their two best years as a team. 2016, they were all hits, no misses. They had this match in Dallas. Their match at Takeover the End against American Alpha was just as good. And then they had that trilogy of matches with DIY at Takeover Brooklyn, Takeover Toronto, and then one that doesn't get talked about as much as I would like it to. Maybe I'm biased because I was there for it. But on the first, I believe, NXT episode of 2017, where they had their final match together, that was a brilliant match too. So I'm just going to call them the Revival because it's easier. The Revival were just clicking on all cylinders this year. And American Alpha just, they were such a good team. And unfortunately, Jason Jordan is no longer an active wrestler. He's still with the company, he's a producer, but neck injury basically forced him into retirement, which is a shame because I always liked Jason Jordan. And it kind of snake bit Chad Gable a little bit because the jury's still out on American Made, his group with the Creeds. I don't think Chad Gable's been able to truly recover. Like, he's had brilliant moments, but he's got Shorty G, and then he's got all these other things. This is like American Alpha's like peak as a team because it never got this good for them again.
Yeah, yeah. And just a little bit off topic. I don't know if they'll ever do this, but I I want to see them kind of put maybe Chad Gable back on that right path by maybe having him be the one to defeat Ron Breaker for the Intercontinental title down the road. But I don't know if they'll work with them both being heels, so Ron would have to turn face for that to work. But after that, so moving on to we had Austin Aries defeating Baron Corbin, and I believe Austin Aries was only in the company for a year before he sort of got let go.
This was
Um,
his first show, and then he was out by Extreme Rules 2017, so just over a calendar year.
yeah,
And I legit forgot that he was in NXT, and I consider myself to be a pretty avid expert on NXT Black and Gold, and I forget that he was even a part because and not because of anything like malice. I mean, Austin Aries is a very talented wrestler, but he was just in a weird spot. Like, it was already so loaded with quality guys, and so like, yay, he finally made it to WWE after like over a decade on the indies, but it's like, all right, now what do you do with him? Like,
yeah,
his run was good, but I think it could have been better. It was just too like top heavy, I guess.
yeah, and and it's one of those ones like, and I believe the story for this was Baron Corbin was upset about being, I think he was upset about losing to Sami Zayn or something. This is what I gathered from the promo package that they played before this, and then William Regal said Oh yeah, I've got someone for you, like, and announce this match, and because I think there was some bad blood for this too, and Baron Corbin is another guy that's like who I think had his best match, like from what I could gather, like he seemed to be really good in NXT because last week we talked about his random match at TLC 2018 against Braun Strowman.
Okay.
um, so, but yeah, so going from that to this, where which was only 2 years before that too. It was like but he seems to be doing really well in NXT. I don't think they've ever haven't done anything good with him since in the main roster. Because he's sort of going through gimmicks and that
Baron
like
Corbin is a bit of an interesting case. He's in a really weird spot right now because I've always liked the guy. Like I didn't love him, but I'm like, okay, I like him. I like he's good at what he does. But I think he's in a place now where I feel like he was like a Vince guy for so long. And so with Triple H, like he doesn't really know what to do with him, even though he literally won the Dusty Cup with Braun Breaker earlier this year. I'm old enough to remember that. And now they've got him doing Manscaped commercials with Apollo Crews. Again, that's very bizarre, but here we are. It's funny to think that Baron Corbin literally loses this match, then goes on to WrestleMania and wins the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal and never looks back. It's just it's a very bizarre like series of events. Like of all the matches on this show, this is probably the weakest. Any other show, it would be like above average, but this is one of the
yeah
best NXT takeovers ever. And so it's like you got to give the worst match spot to one of these, and that's the one that sticks out.
yeah yeah, and it's one of and it's just one of those ones like even though this definitely was the sort of the biggest match on the card, but it was still good. It's one of those ones like it's like the whole uh, I can't think of a franchise. It's like the whole John Wick scenario in which the weakest of the franchise is still a good movie, regardless. So the match itself is good. It definitely could have been better. I don't know what would have improved it. And I don't, but and it's an interesting, and it's actually kind of an interesting thing of note here. Like they didn't put like special matches on any of these at all. Like these were all just standard matches.
Like
Which is which
literally NXT had like a ladder match like every once in a while. And then I
yeah
remember when they did like I think it was like a cage match for the first time, and I was just like, "What are we doing?" And like I remember when Samoa Joe and Finn Balor at the next Takeover were having a cage match, and I'm like, "NXT's having cage matches right now. This just doesn't seem right." It
yeah
it, it was a good match. Don't get me wrong, but they were just to your point. They were just all like one fall in the ring, standard rules, like no frills or anything of the sorts, no gimmicks, for lack of a
yeah
better word.
yeah. I think if I remember rightly, actually, I think this was really early on into the rebrand too. So maybe they just wanted to showcase the wrestlers and then them focusing on bringing in gimmicks later and try to sprinkle it through every now and then. I think that might, but yeah. There's the other thing I've noticed is like there was no like backstage segments to talk about either. They just really wanted to showcase the wrestling. Um, then moving on to the next match we had Shinsuke Nakamura up against Sami Zayn, um, and this was a great match because I believe this was Shinsuke's debut,
It was.
and yeah, and from what I understand, I think Sammy had just come back from injury as well. From once again, what I get from the promo.
The scenario was is that that Sammy had hurt his shoulder. I know it seems like a rather ludicrous notion, but Sami Zayn did hurt his shoulder. Just trust me on this one. He's had a lot of shoulder issues. He hurts his shoulder in mid 2015 and then doesn't come back until Takeover London in December of that year. He puts on a great match with Samoa Joe for #1 contendership for the NXT title. It's a match that's so good that it took up an entire episode of NXT TV. It was that good, and it went on for that long. It was nearly an hour. And then Sami Zayn's like, I don't know what I'm going to do anymore. And then William Regal's like, I got somebody for you. And then the cell phone video of Shinsuke Nakamura saying, hey, I'm coming. And this match is just so beautiful. Like it's just beautiful. Like from start to finish, just from Shinsuke Nakamura's entrance, Sami Zayn's entrance. I don't think this crowd wanted either one of these guys to lose. They didn't want to boo any one of these guys. It was just a pure wrestling match. You didn't need a complex story. It's just two really good wrestlers, one debuting, one that's been there from the beginning, and just going at it. There's so much to love about this match. Like I love Shinsuke. Like Sammy goes for his little DDT, not his little DDT, but his DDT through the turnbuckles. Yeah. He goes for that, and then Shinsuke just knees him in the face. That's just insane to me. Yeah. And then there's just a sequence where Shinsuke like boots him in the head a bunch of times, and then Sammy fires back with boots of his own. This match, I could just do a play-by-play on it, but it was my first exposure to Shinsuke Nakamura. I knew of his work in New Japan. I had watched his AJ Styles match at Wrestle Kingdom. That was it. And so just afterwards, I'm like, it's impossible to screw up a guy like this. And now he's not even on TV, which is rather disappointing, but here it is.
Yeah. So who's like, were they both faces in this scenario? Was one of them heel? Or...
No. Sammy was a face because it was physically impossible to boo Sammy in NXT. It was you couldn't do it. And Shinsuke, he had been a heel eons ago, but he was just too charismatic for people to boo. So it was face versus face, which threw the dynamic off. But again, nobody cared. Like everyone was just there being like, this is the greatest thing that's ever happened. I love this match so much.
Oh, yeah, no, that was going to go my point anyway, but because like I've seen a lot of talk online, but people going like, oh, putting a face against a face is not interesting. This is proof that you can do face versus face, and it's a good match. Like it's a really interesting match. So it's like, because I mean, like, and I know a lot of this conversation happened with this Kevin Owens Cody Rhodes match that's happening at Bash at Berlin, and like, it's like, look, there's a story there. Like, Cody Rhodes is repaying Kevin Owens back for all the help he's given him with the bloodline story and that. And Kevin Owens deserves it, even though Kevin Owens doesn't believe he deserves it.
I mean, not to mention that the match itself is going to be fantastic. I mean, Cody Rhodes is awesome, and Kevin Owens has been awesome for his entire career. So it's not like the match is going to be bad. Like as soon as the bell rings, there's going to be substance there. So it's just a case of people just complaining just for the sake of complaining, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
And back to this match, this is essentially Sami Zayn's final NXT match, and they treat it like a big deal. Like after he loses, it's like I know he's Tom Hannafin in Impact or TNA now, but he was Tom Phillips back then. And I remember saying, what happens to Sami Zayn now? Because keep in mind, Sami Zayn was in the Intercontinental title ladder match the next night at Mania. So this was his ending in NXT and his beginning on the main roster, where he's gone on to do some pretty good things. So, and he had been in NXT since 2012 when the soft reboot happened. And he was the guy that drew a lot of people in, drew me in. I had a couple Sami Zayn shirts. Like, I'm not ashamed to admit that. He was awesome. Still is. So, I mean, it's rather unfortunate what has happened to Shinsuke since then, but because if you really think about it, like, grand scheme of things, he was never this good again. And I feel like that's going to be a theme of my commentary on this show. Insert name here was never this good again. Like, American Alpha were never this good again, and Shinsuke was never this good again.
Yeah. I mean, and I think with Shinsuke, I think that I think he can definitely get back to that level again. Hopefully, I think it's just a case of they need to pull the trigger and give him something meaningful to do. 'Cause I thought they were doing it when he was taking down Seth Rollins, and that then he kind of disappeared and pops up even randomly.
Interesting.
But yeah, moving on to Asuka versus defeating Bailey for the NXT Women's Championship, and yeah, once again, um, I'm not too sure on the timeline how long both of these were in NXT before this, but I think um this match itself was really good, and I believe this was the beginning of Asuka's historic NXT Women's
It
Championship
was.
reign as well.
This was her first. This was the beginning of her really long NXT Women's title run. This was the start of it, and
Yeah,
I love. I mean, I love Bailey too, but Asuka was my favorite thing of NXT for a very, very long time. She was, and is just fantastic. I mean, her debut at NXT Takeover Respect is just it's a squash match against Dana Brooke, but it's just so good. Like, I had never heard of this woman before, and afterwards I'm like, I want to know everything about you. And I had never seen anything of her Stardom run, but I had known that, like, just from her look, her presentation, her offense, I was just like, you're just fantastic. And this is not a case of she was never this good again, because Asuka got this good and then pretty much stayed good for her entire NXT title run.
yeah,
Her match against Bailey at Takeover Brooklyn 2, her title defenses against, she's now known as Athena, but then known as Ember Moon. Like, Asuka was just operating on a different set of rules.
yeah. And yeah, I was pretty much the same sentence I have. Was like I've been a big fan of Bailey ever since I've known her, like seen her wrestle, and yeah, and I was it's one of those ones like I was kind of heartbroken when like she finally got back to a title just to lose it like very quick, like a few months later. Just, I find like, and I mean I get it. Like I don't have any issues with Nia Jax being champion. I'm pretty sure they're telling a good story there, but I'm pretty sure Tiffany's going to turn on Nia eventually. I've
Bailey and
almost
Nia
heard,
Jax. Bailey and Nia Jax had a great NXT Takeover match in London. Like,
yeah,
that match was great. So but to your point, it's rather unfortunate because I I don't want to say that Bailey was never this good again, because I think in her I'm a hugger persona, she was never this good again. She got better as the role model when she was with Sasha Banks, and that whole deal in 2020 and into 2021. She was awesome there. I'll be honest, I was never a big fan of her run as Damage Control, or head of Damage
yeah,
Control. I just I didn't really care for it. Her work was fine and all. It wasn't her fault, but I feel like when you got a stable with her, Dakota Kai, and the Kabuki Warriors, it should be more awesome than this, right? And it just never really was. But that's just a me thing personally.
yeah, because like it's one of those ones that I did like around with damage control, and I mean definitely didn't help. It definitely helped me being a fan of damage control because it had a Kiwi in there as well, and Dakota Kai. um,
Dakota Kai is just awesome generally. So,
which I'm not gonna lie, I did not realize Dakota Kai was New Zealander until I was playing one of the WWE games when she first appeared, and like they introduced her being from New Zealand. Like I was quickly online looking that up, so I did not realize that. But yeah, but anyway, going back to this, it was just a really fun match. These are two just really exciting women just to watch. So I don't know if Asuka was doing her sort of green. I think this was before she started doing her green mist in there. I don't know when she started
before.
doing that, but yeah,
It was before.
But it was just a great match, and I can't remember when she actually lost the NXT title. There would have been, was it in 2018, shortly before around Mania time?
She never lost the title. She vacated it. Give me a second. I'm gonna look this up. Championships.
Yeah, it was like
I am almost there. Oh, come on. Oh, I scrolled past it. Okay, here we go. 510 days. She relinquished the title on the September 6th, 2017 episode of NXT.
okay.
Well, that's when it was filmed. It was aired a little bit later because NXT's taping schedule, they taped 3 episodes at once and then released them throughout the month. So, so starting in April of 16 and ending in September of 17, give or take. So well over a year.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's definitely an amazing run, and once we get more into NXT takeovers, we're probably going to see random shots of her in that one more often too. And then we move on to the main event, which was Finn Balor defeating Samoa Joe for the NXT Championship. And look, this is one of those ones like I'm a big fan of Finn Balor. And it's one of those ones like I've definitely always enjoyed him in his demon outfit.
I feel like we got a figure coming in. Sure enough.
Yeah, because we're not. So I got this from one of the special editions of one of the wrestling games. I think it was when they had like the deluxe collector's edition with NXT stars and stuff. And they gave away that figure. Like, I miss when the WWE games would do stuff like that. Because there's a lot of times when they didn't, like there's a special figures like, because I know that they did that with John Cena once, but that special edition wasn't available in New Zealand, which sucks.
So that's sad.
Oh yeah, but yeah, like Finn Balor's always been exciting to me, and especially when he's doing his like demon stuff. I think it's always a lot of fun. And it's one of those ones like I'll be honest, I've never like I've heard so much about Samoa Joe over the years. I've never really seen the appeal of him though. Like to me, he's just like this like big guy, and like he's a decent enough wrestler, but I think this is, and in the case of this one, I think like for me, like I think this was a really good match, and I think Finn Balor brought out the best in Samoa Joe, even though I've not really sort of enjoyed him as a wrestler per se. But it is what it is, and it's one of those ones like Samoa Joe's one of the few people I forgot was in NXT at one point, because he's one of those ones that I knew was from TNA, and so I thought they just put him on the main roster. But
his story of coming into NXT is so funny because I'll make it short. Basically, in mid 2014, he leaves TNA, he being Samoa Joe, pronouns. He then goes to Ring of Honor for a brief spell. He fights Jay Briscoe for the world title. And then he debuts in NXT, essentially what is assumed to be just a wrestler on occasion, but mostly as a trainer or a coach of sorts. They had no real intention of actually making him an active wrestler. But Ring of Honor put out a series of action figures, one of whom being Samoa Joe. And so WWE was like, yeah, that's not going to happen. We're making him a wrestler. And so they basically turned him into an active wrestler again, which I'm sure Samoa Joe was more than happy to do. But it's a fascinating story. Like, it's action figures that we got Samoa Joe, 2-time NXT champion.
Yeah. Yeah, but Jacob, what are your thoughts on the match between Finn Balor and Samoa Joe?
I honestly prefer their match from NXT Takeover London, but that's not really saying this is a bad match. This is a very good match. I think this might have my favorite Finn Balor Demon entrance, where he basically comes as Texas Chainsaw Massacre Finn Balor. Like, he's
Yeah.
swinging the chainsaw around. Not gonna lie, I watched that entrance too many times. Like, it's so epic. Like Finn Balor clearly has seen the Texas Chainsaw Massacre more than once, and as both of us being horror movie fans, we both really do appreciate the reference there.
Yeah. And I think I think there's also a slight thing of the NXT going, you know what, it's WrestleMania weekend. Like, if you want to do a special entrance, go ahead and try something out.
I mean, you might as well. I mean, you're in Texas. I'm sure there are chainsaws there. You might as well. As far as the match itself goes, I think the thing that kind of hurts my enjoyment a little bit is the stoppages for blood, which was legitimate. I don't think anyone bladed involved. There was not a blade involved in that. But I just wanted to see them like do it, and then they had to stop and they had to tend to first Samoa Joe and then to Balor, and then the crowd just turned on it and chanting FPG, 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 which is just hilarious. Yeah. But at the same time, I'm like, can we just get the refs out of the ring and let them finish? Like, I mean, we're in 2024 and we've seen like the Texas Death Match with Shane Swerve Strickland and Hangman Adam Page. So clearly the stoppages for blood are like clearly being thrown out the window at this point. But in this instance, I'm like, oh, come on, just let them fight. What are we doing here, people? Like, if they can continue, just let them go.
Yeah. Yeah, no, this is one of those ones that like I was learned to earlier when talking about the gimmicks that if they had put a gimmick on this one, then like the whole Savages for Blood probably wouldn't have not. I mean, they probably would have happened still, but not as obvious as what it did with this being a regular match. And but you know, those the other matches, and yeah, I know this might just be probably one of the hardest questions I've had to ask you. Is but if you could go back in time and change one thing about something about this card, what would you do?
I don't want to say I wouldn't. I feel like that would be cheating. Take out the referee, like referees jump, like not the referees, but the trainers, like jumping in there and trying to stop like the blood loss. Like, I get it. It's a PG product. You want to like not do that too much. Like, I understand that, but it's not like Joe and Balor were just like dropping down to do this. You know, it was potatoes. Like, bust out the bacon and the sour cream. Like, it's going to be some loaded potatoes there, and that's fine. I feel like the effect would have been there if they had just like let the match go. And to your point, just make it like a no DQ match. It didn't even have to be like Extreme Rules or something to that effect. Just have it be no disqualification. And that would have been fine. And it would have been an effective like raising of, they had a regular match in London, having a no DQ in Texas, and then when it comes to take over the end, that's when you bring in the cage. So I feel like that would have been a little more streamlined of a natural, not a natural progression, if you will.
and that was going to sort of lead into sort of the say similar to what I was going to say is like, um, and and obviously they probably didn't plan for the blood to happen. I think it was just a
Yeah.
natural progression. But yeah, but like what I would have is like I would have had William Regal come out and go, look, you want to make yourself bleed? Well, it's going to be a no DQ. That's the worst British accent I've ever attempted in my life. Um,
Just
but
have them come
just
out and say War Games.
but just something simple as that. But Jacob, overall, what would you give this pay per view out of 5 stars?
Oh, this is an easy 5. This is one of my favorite shows ever. Like this was. I don't want to say this was like NXT at their best because somehow, some way, there would be better takeovers. At least, like in terms of quality. Like I think as soon as 2018 rolls around, the takeovers would get even better. You got Takeover Philadelphia, Takeover New Orleans. Like just those 2 shows alone, that's Dallas, New Orleans, and Philadelphia are like the holy trinity of NXT takeovers, in my opinion. But I mean, it's a dead heat between those 3 of like the best ones for me.
Yeah, no, this is easily a 5 star for me as well. But and honestly, might um this might actually be my number one pay per view I've covered so far on this. And it's just once again, a lot of fun. Like all the wrestling was good, and it's just. And I'm going to admit, I was a little bit apprehensive going into this because I thought, oh yeah, it's in the NXT. The quality's not going to be as good as what it would be if it was like a full main roster pay per view. But it definitely surpassed like what I was expecting, and just see some of these wrestlers like in the like earlier times when they were sort of, I'm not going to try and say unknowns, but relatively sort of lesser known to people who may only watch like the Wars and Smackdowns. But anyway, time to spin the wheel for next week's pay per view. Still got about 647 on here, so we've been doing this for a few years yet. Yeah, and we're moving into Royal Rumble 2009.
Oh, that's the one that Randy Orton won. He won that one for the first time. And then that was Matt Hardy turning on Jeff, and yeah, that was those are the 2 things I remember from that show.
Yeah, no, I figured it might have been about that time because this is probably one that's actually kind of special for me too, because I think this is really early on since when I first started watching WWE too. So I probably went to my ex's house and watched this live or something to that effect. Because
My
I
first
definitely.
wrestling show period was Mania 25, which is a couple months after this show, after that
Yeah.
Royal Rumble.
Yeah, because I think the first like full pay per view I watched was the 2008 SummerSlam, sort of before this Rumble. But that is the end of Spear from the Past for this week. Jacob, where can people find you online?
On YouTube at RyanCam20, I primarily talk about movies on that channel. I used to have a wrestling channel. It's been long dormant, but I have been kind of kicking around the idea of bringing it back. Because Ring of Honor is actually the year 2005 is regarded as one of their best, and it's going to be turning 20 years old next year. I'm kicking around the idea of reviewing all the Ring of Honor shows from that year. I've been talking to a mutual friend of ours, Austin Pez Howell. He has a very special place in his heart for some of those shows, including Joe versus Kobashi. So I'm like, if I'm talking to him about reviewing Joe versus Kobashi, that show, and then Final Battle, I might as well just review all of them. because Ring of Honor didn't have a TV deal, so those shows, like their big, like supercards, were like the things that they did. So it would be a rather easy like binge watch, I guess. So that's gonna be I'm gonna be starting that up closer to the new year because it's going to be turning 20 next year, and I figured that'd be a fun project to do. But I'll have more info on that as it comes along. But my main channel right now is movie related at Ryan Cam 20, the 1999 project, trying to review every movie from 99. Talkville, or not Talkville, Small Talk, the Smallville podcast that I do. And I've got Scary Mania coming up in October, reviewing 31 horror movies on all 31 days of October. That's always a lot of fun for me. So, yeah, subscribe there.
And you can find me on Tape Productions as I host Rankin every Sunday night. Next week, we're doing Top Shelf Eminem songs, moving away from movies for this week. So, should be interesting. And you can also find me here on Spear from the Past. Next week we're talking about Royal Rumble 2009. Obviously I don't have a guest yet because I haven't asked anyone yet. But you can you can also find me popping up from here and there on other people's channels as it is. And yeah, but that being said, that is it for this week, and yeah, just have fun doing stuff.